Welcome back, everyone. Today, I'm going to be talking about Squid Game Season 1, which is currently streaming on Netflix. Um, in case you haven't seen or you don't know about this show yet, basically Squid Game is a South Korean show that is essentially a bunch of people playing kids game in a battle royale fashion where if you lose, it means death. That's the basic premise of the show, and it's maybe for most people. I mean, we've had a lot of stuff recently like that. I mean, we've had stuff like the Hunger Games. People have compared it to a lot that I've heard people compare it to, but this show is fascinating to me, and I have a lot of people recommend books and shows and all things to review and talk about. Not only friends but also you, the viewers. And I try to keep up on that, but there is just like I have such a massive library of things to look at and to read and to review, and a lot of times these things are not like a quick turnaround. They take multiple days of reading or watching. And Squid Game is 9 episodes, about 45 to 50 minutes an episode. So, you're talking about 8 hours of time to sit down and watch it. I'm really happy I did. This show is really good. And I'm going to try to do no spoilers first. And then I'll get into spoilers. The things that make this show great are just like character development. They do a lot of good writing setups. Really good work with tension and how to uh, keep that tension going throughout the entirety of a show, which can be very difficult to do. In fact, I very rarely see it done in shows, and that's just because it requires such a masterful skill of writing that it's difficult. It's not easy. Um, I mean, the themes are really great. There's a lot of themes about, especially the themes revolve around money and greed and just kind of, I would say, the downfalls of capitalism and stuff like that, like critiques on capitalism. So there's a lot to look out for in this show, which is fascinating, and that gives, you know, people like me and other people who watch the show like a lot to talk about and a lot to discuss because there's just so much depth to the show. I'm not gonna be able to do it just like all the topics justice in 15 minutes, and I don't want to take multiple hours to do this, but it is really good, and I highly recommend that you go check it out. I think it's definitely something that is worth a watch just because of how well written and how well done all these elements are in the piece. Um, with that being said, uh, I did leave the show. Like I wish I would have recorded it that night, but I did not have the energy to record after finishing the show. I left the show pretty hard by just the context, which is good because when you're doing these very emotional shows that have so much depth and people can relate to so much, you want those emotional connections. That's generally why we get attached to different books and stories. Is we see our own lives reflected in it. Um, and that's done here, but it definitely did not leave me feeling like everything's gonna be a okay. It left me kind of uh, I don't want to use the word depressed because I think that's a little strong. but it left me in that type of mindset where I just felt a little empty. Um, so if you're not like a big person of like you don't if you don't want to be sad and you don't like feeling those kind of emotions, then maybe this isn't the show for you. But I still think you should give it a shot because it just does so many good things, and I think we all need shows like this from time to time to kind of let us reflect on our own lives and how we treat people and what we're doing in our environment around us. So with all that being said, definitely recommend you go watch it. I'm going to start going into spoilers now, so if you don't want any spoilers for the show, come back and watch afterwards. But I don't like spoiling things like this for people because I want people to go enjoy it without any spoilers. I think that really does change the impact that you can have on different projects, because generally if you get spoiled, it doesn't leave you with the same because you're expecting it. Yeah, okay. With that all being said, the I'm not gonna be able to pronounce like any of these characters' names because I don't speak Korean, and that's on me. But I'm gonna attempt to. So, uh, Ji-hun is our main character, right? And I think that one of the biggest positives is just his character growth throughout the entirety of the show. We got to see him at the beginning with, kind of like he does succeed in a way with his gambling and stuff like that. And it does pay off in the short term there, but we see very quickly the consequences of his lifestyle and what he's chosen. Like, he's kind of blown through some money and stuff like that. And he's not in the best spot considering that a lot of his money seems to come from loan sharks. But as we go through the show, we get to see piece by piece of his, you know, the realization that, like, while he's in this situation and he might have a little bit of a gambling addiction, which is just something, some people have, and they, there's nothing, addictions happen. We need to support and help those people in the best way we can and not demonize them. But part of it too is just due to his life situation, and there's really doesn't seem to be a lot of hope or like chances for him to actually like it feels like a lot of times the reason he gambles is because he doesn't have much of a choice in the matter. He kind of has to do it to survive at all. And it's really fascinating, but we also get those moments of him just having a really good heart. And like, while, the choices he's made does affect some of the people around him, including his mother and his daughter, it doesn't always, like, there's definitely this, I feel like he tries to minimize the damage he does to others. And I don't think he really realizes at the beginning of the show what he's done. I really like that contrast from his friend who is it Sung Woo? I believe so. So the contrast between the two of them mirroring each other all the way up to the end, I think is like that is a staple writing technique, but it's done to like, it's done in a bunch of different things, but it's done really well here in a way that puts emphasis on the story and the stakes in the story and kind of shows you, the viewer, the difference between, these two characters' perspectives on money. And I feel like Ji-hun is more of I'm probably all over the place with these names, by the way, and I apologize again. I'm not good with character names to begin with, and yeah. But anyway, like there is a sense of like when he has money, and we even see this in the beginning of this desire to have money, but not in a way to benefit himself necessarily, but in a way to share it and share good times with others. Like the first thing he does when he wins in gambling is he goes out with his friend and they get a few things and they get smokes and stuff like that. And then like he calls his daughter and is like, "Yeah, I'm going to get you whatever you want today. Like, you know, this, whatever. I don't care. Like, let's spend the money and let's have a good time together." Whereas his friend is more along the lines of, you know, he had money, his investments went wrong, and he's now in huge amounts of debt. But the money has always ever been about me, me, me. And I like that comparison, or that like reflection of each other, of like these two characters are kind of in the same situation, but their perspectives on money are a little different. And it makes it really fascinating, along with like the conclusion of the story when they actually play the Squid Game. And there is this moment where you know we have this moment where Ji-hun could like kill his friend, and he decides against it. Like he even tries to, you know, give up the game and like not, like he cares so little. Like he wants the money. It's very important to him. We've seen throughout the show, and it's important to him in the sense that he can pay off his debts. He can help his mother. He can help his daughter. You know, that's what he wants the money for. But he doesn't want to sacrifice himself to he doesn't want to sacrifice himself to get in a way that can, you know, it's just like this he doesn't want to ruin his personality. He cares more about saving his friends than he does about himself. And I really liked the way that sorry, that was like a long pause there. I really like the way the conclusion works, because there are these moments of tropes within that final moment, and they're a little bit subverted each time, because like his friend does not deserve forgiveness in any way, but it's more speaks about the main character and his personality and his, you know, morality than it does about you know, his friend earning his forgiveness. It's just more of a matter of like, I can't do this, and you don't deserve death for the situation you've been put into. Yeah, fantastic, super fantastic ending. I also like the end scene with the old man, which I again terrible with names. I'm bringing them up. I think we only get his name like twice anyway. But number one, the old man in the show, I think that like I was actually kind of like, okay, we're done with the games and we have half an hour left of this. What are they gonna do for 30 minutes to tie all this together? Because usually you don't take that long afterwards. But I think the scene, I mean, like the scene with them in the building watching on the homeless man to see if anyone comes and saves him before midnight before he freezes to death, that's just like, sometimes that can be a little like abrasive, because that scene is definitely like, here's theme, viewer, and just kind of smashes you in the face with it, because it's basically I have faith in humanity. Well, I don't have faith in humanity, and that's why I started this anyway, because who cares? And, we do get that bittersweet moment of like the person coming to help the homeless man to show that like there is still good in people, and that sometimes it just needs to be, people just need to have a better situation. And I think that's like the biggest themes of the show, is just like showing that, money both ways, whether it's you have too little money or too much money, can really corrupt you in a way, and also just like warp your view of other people. It can make you either really desperate and like willing to kind of stab people in the back if you have to, or it can make you just completely like disconnected in a way that you don't even see other people as human, which is pretty fucked up. So, now I want to take a little bit of the time here at the end. I really wanted to drive home on that point. I had a few other things I wanted to talk about, but like the show's great, and I think that I could sit here for an hour and discuss it. I think it'd be better if I did a drink and discuss video, and maybe I will do a drink and discuss video about this show, because I think there's only so much I can talk about by myself, and I like the idea of being able to bounce off ideas like between people and like get other opinions of the show besides just my own perspective. But a couple things I wanted to clear up. One thing was, I had a friend message me about this show and really wanted me to watch it, and then ask me a question about, well, would you ever do a video talking about the differences between Eastern and Western storytelling, referring mostly to the show specifically? And I kind of said probably not right now, at least, because the research that I would need to do for that would be like, for me to feel comfortable talking about the differences, and because there'll be so many minute differences based on culture. I mean, there's so many minute differences between like even American storytelling and like canon English storytelling, and like differences in times of storytelling. So there's like a ton of little variations that are kind of hard to discuss without a really deep context. And since my context is essentially in fantasy, I don't have that deep perspective of knowledge that I could draw on to help and discuss about it. But with this specifically, I think he was wondering, and the way I kind of took it is a bit more of like, how can they produce something like this when we don't? And like, I think everyone should understand that the elements that are in Squid Game, like there are definitely South Korean elements within that, and there are obviously influences because it was produced, made there, and that's all, besides the point. But the main core elements of storytelling are still the same. There's still setups and payoffs. There's still good character development. There's these themes that they really draw on. And I think part of it is that a lot of times, at least in America, there is less of a willingness to put money behind shows that are more artistic and a little bit more out there, unless they have some kind of like, deep backing. And I kind of made this comparison of like, a studio would rather produce a ninth Fast and Furious movie, because regardless of if it's good or not, which I haven't seen and so I can't talk about, but I have anticipations about its quality, but regardless of if it's good or not, the studio would rather take the safe bet because I know because of the name people will go and see it. So it's essentially not gambling your money as much. Whereas if you put your money on something unknown, unless it does really, really well, you're probably losing money on it. And it's kind of one of the sad things because I'm sure there are hundreds and hundreds of great stories that are not getting told in film or in TV format that could be getting told. But it's just kind of the world we live in, and it's just what we gotta have to deal with. And sometimes, things do make it through the cracks, and things do get budgets to produce what they need to produce, and we get shows that are really good. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I was like trying to remember what else did I want to talk about. The other thing I want to talk about is that apparently they're making a second season of this too. I think it's like confirmed that their Netflix is pushing for season 2, and they left the very end very ambiguous, which I think for this type of storytelling, generally for all types of storytelling, it's okay to leave some questions unanswered. But for this type of storytelling, especially how they ended it with all the conclusions, the tie-ups of themes and stuff like that, was really well done. And I personally think that would be a beautiful ending, and that's where they should end it. But I'm not getting a choice on that matter. That's not my decision to be made. So I wanted to think about, I thought about this the other day. There are some things that they could discuss about season 2. They could go into these deeper themes and explore a few more meanings, because there are a lot of things at this point that are concluded. A lot of loose ends were tied up in this season, and basically most of the characters from season 1 are gone. We have a couple characters remaining, and that's it. However, we did have the detective die off screen, so technically he could come back, which would not surprise me at all. We obviously had the information get sent, and it seemed like it was confirmed that it was sent to the police. And it's been a year since this has happened, and it's still going on. So there's a really good chance that they could, if they do end up doing a season 2, they could dive into the corruption of governments and people in power who take money from these very wealthy people to basically turn a blind eye to the suffering of others. And I think that could be a fascinating thing to explore. And it could be really well done. I just get, when you have such a clean, really good ending like this, sometimes it's just good to say, this is all we needed. This is what story needed to be told, and I'm content with this story being told. But only time will tell, and we'll see. Which, if they do release a season 2, I will definitely watch it, and I will review it as well to see how it does, and if it holds up or not, and if it's was worth taking the risk of extending the show to not ruin, but change the what is currently the ending of the show. So I'm really over time right now. I'm at 20, almost 24 minutes. So I think we're gonna end there. I'm fascinated to discuss this with more people. I'm sorry about the pronunciations on the names. I'm probably completely wrong. I was also just looking them up real quick, so that's my bad. If you feel the need to correct me in the comments, then you can correct me in the comments. I would like to know in the comments if you guys are interested in me pulling a couple of friends together to do a drink and discuss about this. So it'd be a longer format video. I would say between 1 and 2 hours, where we actually go into extreme detail about discussing these, even going by episode, talking about these individual themes and character moments that are throughout the show, and it gives everyone, you guys, a different perspective on than just my own, which I'm sure there's a billion people that have reviewed this by this point. But let me know in the comments if you do like the video, and if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot, and I really appreciate it. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you next time.